Yo, how's it going, everyone? This is the Boardmen Don't Get Paid podcast. A couple of you have been asking me and my co-hosts, uh, where's episode one? So we actually shot episode one, but the audio file was corrupted, and we're just basically doing it like Star Wars. We're going in reverse. So we're reshooting episode 1A. If you don't know me, my name is Drew. I'm a huge Laker fan, a huge Raider fan. I love the NFL. I love the NBA. I love fantasy sports, sports in general, playing, watching, whatever. And I hope you like our podcast. We're just here to have a good time. We're the boardmen that don't get paid. I'm gonna go around and maybe introduce my co-host as well. And
Maybe introduce?
yeah. I'm the star of the show, right? So they're just gonna tell you a little bit about themselves, and then we'll get things going. Okay. So my first co-host is Mr. Lawrence Sue. How's it going, Lawrence?
Pretty good. A little bit about myself. I've been a Lakers fan for 29 years of my life, and I jokingly posted that I was transferring over to becoming a Clippers fan after this year, and some people took it seriously.
Oh
I
man.
don't even know if I don't even know what I want to do right now. But I'm still a Lakers fan, I think. I think. But yeah, I grew up. First time I watched basketball, I think it was the year where uh, Robert Ory hit the 3-pointer against the Kings. That was the first time I started watching basketball.
Wait. So you've been a Laker fan for 29 years, but the first time you watched basketball was the year 2002?
It was one of those things where you get adopted into the city that you live in, so you just sort of start liking that team.
So
Except for football,
you weren't adopted into being a Clipper fan.
yeah, I don't know. It seems like everybody who lives in LA just automatically is a Lakers fan. Like when you're born, you're wearing purple and gold, like what I got on already. And then like Clippers fans, I don't know where they come from, but it's like you're not born into a Clippers fan. You're born into being a Lakers fan, and then
They're rare
Clippers.
breed.
Yeah, it's like a DNA abnormality in your DNA. Those are how Clippers fans are made.
Ouch. I actually respect them. We're not trying to turn the Clipper fans away yet. Come on. So our other co-host, who was originally supposed to be a special guest, but we have upgraded him to a co-host because he's that awesome, is Yash Varma. So how's it going, Yash? Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, so unlike Lawrence, I wasn't born into being a Lakers fan. I'm a hardcore Chicago Bulls fan ever since the 94-95 season. So it's been, I don't know, 24, 25 years. Also a Chargers fan. Hoping they get the ship this year. Rest in peace, Derwin James. Hopefully you come back. But yeah, I mean, I love sports. I love playing it. Any chance I get, if there's a chance to play some pickup ball or anything like that, like you can always count me in. So I'm excited to be here and excited to join in on any future episodes.
Awesome, sir. So today we are going to cover the Western Conference. We're going to talk about some of the insanity during the off season, and we're going to get things going. We're going to close out with the LA teams. We're going to leave those for the end. But let's go ahead and get started. So kind of going to work our way up from the bottom here. What do you think of the Phoenix Suns offseason, Yash?
I think they had, a low-key, really good offseason. I don't think it was talked about enough because of, the whole Lakers offseason, Clippers getting Kawhi and PG. But the Suns, you got to compare their roster, now compared to what they were, putting out last season. And it looks like a night and day difference. I feel like their biggest acquisition and their best acquisition was getting Ricky Rubio. Now they have an actual floor general and, a starting caliber point guard to pair next to Devin Booker. That's going to be a big deal. He's going to run the offense really well. they got Dario Saric. He's basically what Dragan Bender should have been for the Suns. So that was a nice pickup, a nice stretch for them to run. They re-signed Kelly Oubre. He was actually a pretty good mid-season acquisition for them last year, and I feel like he really shined when he joined Phoenix. I feel like it's a common theme for players leaving Washington to actually shine. So that was good, and then you've got DeAndre Ayton and coming into his second year.
Ayton. I love your pronunciation. Man.
I mean, it does look like Ayton.
It does look like
Ayton.
Well, it's not like I'm calling him like Ayton or some shit. I mean, Ayton, right?
I mean, that's his name, though.
Ayton? It's not Ayton.
It is
Ayton. DeAndre Ayton. You don't call him DeAndre Ayton? Ayton? You like Ayton? No. DeAndre Ayton. All right, we're gonna stick with that. I'm gonna stick with that. I don't know what you clowns are gonna say, but he's coming into his second year, and there's a lot of talk about the Phoenix Suns coach, the Igor, I forgot his name, but they were basically not. His usage rate was pretty low, and even then he was putting up some nice numbers, and he looked like I feel like he got lost in all the Doncic Trae Young craze. So I feel like he's going to take a big step this season. And Devin Booker, I feel like he's going to be putting up points. He's the closest thing to Kobe we got right now. So that team is going to do.
What?
You gotta talk relatively speaking. You gotta say it relatively speaking.
He got 70 points in a garbage game.
He also got 60 with Jimmer Fredette holding him back. He was going 4v6 that game. Like, this guy is a natural born scorer. And so when I say closer to Kobe, I'm not saying he's Kobe. He's
stylistically the closest to Kobe is DeMar.
Yeah, he could be. No, I mean, I'm saying just he's automatic, right? He can just light up from anywhere. And it's good to see like a shooting guard like him. Like, he's got the 3 ball, he's got the mid range, and he can drive to the hoop. Just needs to pick it up a little bit on defense. But
so one thing I'm going to add to that, I actually really like Mikal Bridges. I think he's kind of overlooked.
We know you love Mikal Bridges. We know you love Mikal Bridges. All you ever post are about his steals and his defensive efficiency.
He's a great defender, man. If he figures out how to shoot consistently, that's going to be a really nice player for them. They did reach in the draft according to experts. I mean, again, I don't want to judge these things too soon because the guy hasn't even played yet, but his own college teammate Kobe White was giving a reaction what the F when Cameron Johnson got drafted where he did. So hopefully he pans out for them. Historically, they have kind of made some terrible picks. One of them who maybe they didn't give enough opportunity. Well, Devin Booker's a good one. One of them who they kind of cut bait with is Josh Jackson, who they shipped to the Memphis Grizzlies, which is the next team that I'm going to kind of talk about a little bit. I actually really liked what the Memphis Grizzlies did. They did something that I am always a proponent of. If you are a team that is struggling and you have nowhere to go and you're flush with cap space, they absorbed contracts, and in doing so, teams gave them assets. So the Golden State Warriors needed to unload Iggy's contract, and the Memphis Grizzlies were a taker, and they got a free first-round pick for that. And I'm a big fan of teams doing that. They traded Mike Conley, so they pretty much are acknowledging it's a full rebuild. Mike Conley is a fantastic player, but I'm glad that this team has a sense of hey, we're not going to compete right now. Let's just start with these young players. John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., give Josh Jackson another chance in a different system. And you can flip Andre Iguodala again, to a contender. There's rumors about the Lakers, the Rockets, and other teams that are really interested in him. So they may be able to net a couple assets just for that same player. I'm a big fan of what Memphis is doing and the direction that they're going, and particularly the assets that they're stockpiling. They actually also have I believe they have a pick that is due to Boston if it lands in a certain range in the bottom five, or is where it's protected. So if they suck bad enough, then they basically avoid having to give that pick up. So that's another bonus for them.
I mean, I don't really think Memphis is gonna be that awful. I think John Moran, he led that Murray State team single-handedly almost to a first round. Did he upset? Yeah, he had a first round upset in the tournament last year. And then, I mean, how do you just talk about Memphis without mentioning like literally the fantasy MVP of last year, like the guy who just dominated fantasy basketball playoffs, and Jonas Valanciunas? Like,
Yeah,
how did you forget him?
I didn't forget him. I mean, they retained him, but I'm just kind of focusing on their young guys. And I just fact checked myself. So Memphis has a first round pick due to Boston, which is protected for selections 1 through 6 in 2020. So I think they're going to be a team that finishes near the bottom, and that is probably what they're aiming for in order to keep that pick. Because if that pick falls into pick 7, then Boston actually acquires that pick. I mentioned this earlier. They gave up their best player. Maybe we could talk about the team they gave him up to. So Mike Conley was sent to the Utah Jazz. Do you have any thoughts on Utah's offseason, Lawrence? What do you feel is a projection for them for the season?
I mean, they're solid. Jazz are. I think they're going to be a team that makes the playoffs like they usually do. I think defensively they've gotten probably better. They traded away Derek Favors, but they added, Mike Conley, who's always been a elite defender by for the most part. He also gives them better shooting than what Ricky Rubio provided them, and yeah, that the Jazz team is going to be extremely nasty on defense. And they also added Bojan Bogdanovic as well, right? So
Yeah, and they added Jeff Green on the cheap.
yeah, so like I think they're going to be great. Like having Favors out of the picture now, they're able to not clog the paint so much on offense. Like their offense at times last year looked pretty bad. It was just like Mitchell going in 1-on-5, or anytime the ball they just didn't have anybody who could shoot besides Joe Ingles pretty much. And Mitchell's a very hot and cold kind of player. So I think they're going to be good this year. I don't know if they have enough firepower to compete with some of the top teams in the Western Conference, but I mean, who knows? Like right now there's such an X factor with them because you have no idea what kind of team they're going to bring to the table next year.
I actually think they'll be slightly worse defensively because I think Derek Favors is actually really good at defense, and they were able to just kind of put him in right after Rudy Gobert. They were able to stagger those minutes. I've always said this about Mike Conley. If Mike Conley was in the East, he would be a perennial all-star. If you flip him and Kyle Lowry, and let's say Kyle Lowry was a Grizzly and Mike Conley was on the Raptors for the last 6 or 7 years, I think Mike Conley would have been an all-star every single year. And that's not to take away from Kyle Lowry, but that's just kind of to point out how good Mike Conley actually is. Bogdanovic.
I think it's more of how bad point guards in the East are.
It's a combination of the two, right? So the West, there's so many good guards. The last you look at the last 10, 12 years, how long Mike Conley's been in the league, he's not going to make it over Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, Kobe, James Harden, Russ. There's just too many people to climb over, especially in the popular aspect. He's never going to win that, and basically has to get in on a coach's selection.
I mean, you got to remember his.
So another team in a cold weather city, the Minnesota Timberwolves. What do you think about their offseason, Yash? What do you think about their outlook for the 2019 season?
I don't know. I feel like they got to keep. There's so many things that need to go right for them. They do have Robert Covington.
That was a solid pickup.
Yeah, I mean they did get a good return for a disgruntled Jimmy Butler. And anyone hating on Jimmy Butler, they can go screw themselves. But they have Covington, solid 3-and-D guy. Cat is, he's still a monster inside. honestly, it all comes down to, which Andrew Wiggins shows up. If it's the Andrew Wiggins that goes off against, Oklahoma City, that's going to be a very, very tough team to play against.
That guy's stats versus OKC and the Cavs are like such a statistical anomaly. It's
Yeah.
insane. Like he looks like a perennial all-star whenever he plays against those two teams in particular, and then any other team in the league, he's just a glorified chucker who shoots like 21-foot mid-rangers and is extremely inefficient. The T-Wolves are noted to have said that they want him to expand on the range a little bit this season, so let's see if that happens. The Wolves also traded up in the draft. They gave up the 11th pick and Sarge to get pick 6, and they got Jarrett Culver with that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that there's a possibility that by the trade deadline, Cat is going to be requesting to be moved. I really see that as a possibility. This team is extremely dysfunctional. They have they have not really shown any growth the last like few years, to be completely honest.
So I feel like that growth, they were under Tibbs for the last 2 years, right? That's, Tibbs he's a great coach if you're coaching in like the 2000s, right? Or like early 2010s. I mean, you can't be running your players like 40 plus minutes a game and have this like old school like grind mentality, especially with these like young, I guess just in this generation. He had a lot of success with the Bulls, but then you look at the Bulls and like there were games where like half the team was like injured, and I feel like he just never adapted to the modern game. I feel like a Tibbs plus D'Antoni, like if they fused to become one coach, that'd be just like the best coach of all time, right? But the Tibbs, like he was part of that locker room culture that was so like it wasn't the greatest. So I feel like Ryan Saunders, he's going to be, the Wolves are going to come out a little bit fresher. They're going to have kind of that beginning, that energy at the beginning of the season. I think they will exceed expectations. They have the chance to.
I mean, I have no expectations for them really, so
it's like 30 games, right? 30 or 30 games.
I feel like that isn't even saying that much.
Not, but
let's move on from the Wolves to the Mavericks, who have a potential dynamic duo in Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. What are your thoughts on that, Lawrence?
Man, I'm getting all the teams I don't want to talk about, but yeah, Mavericks, they're great. I don't really like. They were solid at times last year. They were a little lacking on defense. I honestly think their team was a little dysfunctional. Like if you ever watched them play, it was basically give the ball to Luka and get out of the way for like basically every game they played. And like when DSJ was on that team, like that team just did not work with DSJ, Luka, and Wes Matthews. Like I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know how Porzingis is going to respond coming back from his injury. I think when the last time we saw him, he was a beast. I think he was legitimately an MVP candidate before he got hurt. So, I mean, all you really need, I guess, is if Porzingis plays to the standard that we know that he can play at, and Doncic can, build up on like that season that he had last year was legitimately, I think, the best season a rookie has ever had. Probably better than LeBron's rookie year. I think it was better than LeBron's.
Statistically, it's
higher. Jordan's rookie year was probably the best year. Jordan or MJ? I mean,
Jordan or MJ?
Jordan or Magic? Magic Johnson, MJ.
Oh, Magic Johnson. MJ.
yeah, Jordan or Magic.
MJ jersey, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be solid. They picked up, I think they picked up DeLon Wright from Memphis, who kind of balled out in his, when he had playing time last year. They picked up Boban. I don't know what he's going to do for them.
But at least he's fun.
He is fun. Bobby and Toby is one of my favorite web series.
They picked up Seth Curry as well.
I mean,
reunited on that team.
I don't know. I have no thoughts on Steph Curry. He'll be a great seventh man, I guess, for them. But yeah, honestly, like Porzingis, Luca are gonna be like the two go-to guys, and like I think they did a good job, like with Tim Hardaway as their number 3 scorer. Like when he signed that fat contract with New York and he was their number 1 scorer, like that team wasn't gonna work out if you had Tim Hardaway as your number 1 option. But as a number 3 or number 4 option, like that's a pretty solid squad, and they're all pretty young, I
They've
think.
got shooters. They've got
Yeah,
shooters.
so well, who knows? Like they definitely exceeded expectations last year, and I would assume that they're gonna exceed expectations again this year with the squad that they have.
Do you think they can make the playoffs?
It's tough. If they're in the East, I would probably say yes, but not in the West.
Okay, fair. So the next team I want to talk about is the Sacramento Kings. Um, this team was on the cusp of making the playoffs last year. They fired their coach. They hired Luke Walton. De'Aaron Fox had a magnificent season. Marvin Bagley was really coming on in the last like few weeks of the season. How do you think the Sacramento Kings fared in the offseason, and how do you think they will fare in 2019, Yash?
I mean, the offseason, they re-signed Harrison Barnes.
That was a terrible re-signing.
Horrible contract.
I mean, 4-year 80? Does he have a team? Is it a team option last year?
I don't even want to look it up because it's gross.
Honestly, 4 years and 4 years 80 in this climate. It's not as bad as people think. It's not like you're signing Mozgov or Luol Deng to 4 years and 80.
Whoa.
Right?
I think it's bad because I feel like you're stunting Bogdanovic's growth.
Maybe he's a good vet presence. He's a good locker room presence. When they traded away Iman Shumpert last season, he was part of the deal with Barnes. So I feel like I feel like if they have a full off season to work together, there's going to be a third year for De'Aaron Fox. Bagley's it's going to be a second year. This is a very young team, and I think Harrison Barnes is just kind of like that vet anchor, that vet presence that's just going to help out the rest of the locker room. He's not he's one of those players that like he's not toxic at all. He's very well respected. He's a standout guy. He's going to bring his value is going to be as much on the court as it is off the court. That team is going to be they have a real shot at pushing for the 8th seed. And I think they just, they were going to be the 8th seed last year. They just faltered at the end. They kind of tripped at the finish line. Buddy Hield came out. He really showed up, and that trade that the Kings made for Hield and a couple of draft picks, Cousins, yeah, like now, I mean that's basically a win for the Kings. That was a
bandits,
yeah. So I think the Kings have a really good young core. I think Harrison Barnes, despite the contract, he still has positive value that he can definitely help out the Kings. So I like the team. They're going to be fun. And De'Aaron Fox, he was my number 1 point guard draft pick in that draft over Fultz, over Lonzo Ball. Like I was all about Fox, and I really felt like the Lakers should have drafted him over Ball. Even the Sixers should have drafted him over Ball. He's just he's the complete package.
The dude couldn't shoot coming out of college, but he definitely developed that slightly last year. I think if you can
defender too.
Yeah, and he's fast. Like and I think like honestly like that I'm still going back to Harrison Barnes contract, but for just a vet presence, that's a pretty expensive veteran presence contract when you sign a guy like Trevor Ariza who basically does the same thing Harrison Barnes does.
See, that's my gripe with that team is it seems like they always mix in a couple overpaid veterans. Like a couple of years ago, they overpaid Zach Randolph just to be the veteran presence. They kind of did the same thing again with Trevor Ariza.
I think a couple of years ago, they legitimately thought they were going to win with that, like, Zach Randolph.
George Hill.
Yeah. Like, I think they were actually thinking that they were going to be able to contend with that core.
So
I
those
do like Dwayne Dedman though. He's actually, I think, one of the most underrated players in the NBA. Can stretch the court and defend the rim. Solid player. Let's move to a potential contender, a little more exciting team, the Denver Nuggets. What is your thought on the Denver Nuggets this year, Lawrence? And how do you think they did in the offseason?
Yeah, I think they did amazing in the offseason. I've been a big Denver Nuggets proponent ever since Jokic broke onto the scene a couple years back. I labeled him as like an MVP pick in the future, his rookie year, and it's looking better and better as each year goes by. And
That's looking like a fantastic call, sir.
with Jokic anchoring that offense, I mean, I don't know who's really anchoring it. Sometimes it's Jokic, sometimes it's Jamal Murray. I think they do a lot better when Jokic anchors the offense, but they're poised for another strong year. I think the re-signing of Paul Millsap was a little bit of an overpay, but I understand why they did that because they, had the number one seed in the Western Conference last year, and they wanted to basically continue that. They bring their entire core back, and they added in Bol Bol, who slipped a lot in the draft, and they got Michael Porter Jr. coming back from injury, like a year-long injury. It's been like 3-year-long injury, but like he was basically the next, Kevin Durant or MJ coming out of high school. He was like number one overall
Tons of
pick
hype.
before Zion became the pick from his class, I guess. Because I think Zion reclassified to, another time. But yeah, so if those two can develop the way that people think that they can develop, like before Bobo went down at Oregon, like that dude was flashing signs of like that guy was like shooting 3-pointers. I was like a 7 foot, like that. Another stretch five is basically what they need, and hopefully this year Jokic can be a little more aggressive. And that offense is like that offense. Whenever Jokic is on and he's not passive and just deferring to others, like it's fire. Like it's really hard to stop that Denver Nuggets offense.
Yeah, a couple things I'm going to add to that. One thing I really liked about their offseason was the trade for Jeremy Grant. I thought that was a nice pickup for what's going to be a late first-round pick. That might be their long-term solution at power forward once Millsap comes off the books. My take on Millsap, like you said, that's in my opinion an overpay. I don't think anybody was going to bid that much had they not picked up the team option and then just re-signed him for like a 1-year deal for like 15 mil rather than 30. I don't see another team that would have paid more than that. I think they're going to trade Millsap. That's my little spicy take on that. I think some team who's got a combination of some role players that are worth 30 mil will flip them to Denver and absorb Millsap's contract to clear their own cap space. That's my take on that. But yeah, you're right. Denver is a legitimate contender. I really like Jamal Murray. That guy can, as a player, I don't like root for him because as Laker fans, we don't really like him. But
I think that contract was a slight
hot.
overpay. Like it was definitely paying him that much money. But you're right, he does get hot. Like last year, he had that duel with Kyrie Irving where he just went ham, put up like 40 points against Boston, I think. So he has
I can't remember if
flashes.
it was last year, but there's a clip of him like annihilating Steven Adams on like a ISO. So
Yeah.
if you haven't seen that, please watch that. That was RIP Steven Adams after that.
Yeah. And like they have solid defenders. They bring Gary Harris back, who's one of the I don't want to say best, but top 2-way players in the league.
Yeah.
And yeah, they
Morris had a really good assist to turnover ratio.
both Monte Morris, Malik Beasley played very well backing up, Jamal Murray. Yeah, they're a solid team. They're gonna play well this year. I think that will they get the first seed again? I think they very well might. I think that a lot of teams got a lot better as well. But there's honestly nothing wrong with this team. I think what you're saying about Millsap can definitely hold true. I think they have enough to back up Millsap. Like I think their best teams last year weren't the Millsap teams. It was the small ball teams where they just run Harris and Barton and Beasley or whoever else they had, and those teams were so efficient offensively and defensively.
Now you can put Jeremy Grant into that mix, who's a crazy athlete. That's going to fit in nicely with them. And this might be one of the deepest teams, if not the deepest team in the NBA.
Oh, for sure.
Very deep team.
Yeah. So let's move on to a team that you kind of want to talk about, which is the Portland Blazers.
Yeah, so I'm a big Damian Lillard fan. He's currently my favorite player in the NBA to watch. I make no secret about that. I love Dame time. Have a jersey, whole thing. Um, I'm surprised this team is still kind of getting disrespected. They just made the Western Conference Finals. Um, they still have a very dynamic duo in Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, who have a ton of chemistry. And they pretty much return like most of the core of their team. They did lose Aminu, Harkless, but I think Nurkic is going to come back later in the year, healthy. I don't mind what they did with picking up Hassan Whiteside. Um,
They
low
re-signed
risk-
Hood.
Huh?
They re-signed Hood.
They re-signed Rodney Hood, who played really well in the playoffs. They traded Evan Turner for Kent Bazemore, which I think is an upgrade personally. I don't see why this team continues to fly under the radar. They got swept by the Warriors, um, but it's the Warriors. Even without KD, it's still a really really elite team, and I think the Blazers are gonna make it to the second round. That's if you guys want to make a bet on that, I'm more than willing to take action on
I mean, I think you're right. I think they'll make it to the second round, and you're right that they get like they're not a flashy team in terms of like making these big acquisitions, right, or these big trades. They kind of just do their thing. They get into the playoffs, and I think what really hurts them is like when they lose series, like whenever they lose, they just get beaten down. Like they get swept by the Warriors and they get swept by the Pelicans and then they get re-swept by the Warriors. Or I think they took a game off the Warriors. I'm not sure.
A couple years ago, or are you talking about this year?
This last year? I don't know, but like they just get beaten down. So a lot of teams think, a lot of people think like, oh, like they're not going to make it. But no, they're still a solid team. And I think one of my takes is that I feel like they're going to make a trade for Kevin Love. I think that Kevin Love is what Portland needs. A stretch forward that can play the 5 when they want to run small, and just an outstanding outside shooter.
I love that take, by the way. I think he would be a great fit with that team, and that would elevate them. Sure.
Pair him with him and Nurkic, like that would be a solid team. That would be a really really good team.
If Nurkic comes back healthy, later in the year, this team, there's a chance they can get back to the Western Conference Finals again.
Yeah.
So I disagree with both of you guys there. I'm willing to take the Portland to the second round bet. I think they return their 2 core players, but I feel like they lost like half their roster. Like Aminu's not there anymore, who was an important player for them.
I feel like he did nothing in the playoffs, though, to be fair.
I mean, he sat in a corner and shot threes and made them half the time, or like 30% of the time. But he plays a good defense. They lost Mo Harkless.
Wait, half the time and 30% of the time. That's a
large variance.
That's a large difference.
When he was open, he made him half the time. When he was guarded, he made him 30% of the time.
They did lose Seth Curry, who played well in the
They lost Seth Curry. They lost Mo Harkless. They lost Nurkic. Nurkic's injury, I don't think it's something that they want to rush him back from, especially because they're still developing someone like Zach Collins. And honestly, like last year, their path to the Western Conference Finals was probably the easiest I've seen in a while for a Western Conference team. Like that OKC team had basically folded over and quit. That Denver team, even though they were the number 1 seed, like they were very inexperienced. Like
so
that was the
you're
first.
saying the team that you love was the easiest path to make it to the Western Conference Finals?
I mean, I didn't love them that much last year. I love them more this year. I think it's 2 years ago, Denver missed the playoffs by like 2 games, came back with vengeance this year, and got the number 1 seed. I think that experience is going to help them go farther this year. Like nobody on Denver had this, besides Millsap, had the experience of Dame and McCollum in the playoffs. So
and McCollum killed them in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think what Yush is saying definitely can hold true. I think a Kevin Love to the Portland to the Blazers makes perfect sense for them. Like he's basically a better Aminu.
That's a very light way of putting it.
Yeah, and
Kevin Love is way better than Aminu.
Yeah, he's basically a better Aminu. maybe not so skilled defensively, but I don't know. I still have that him locking down Curry, like burned into my brain that one year in the playoffs. But
just imagine Damian Lillard with Kevin Love popping. That's a dynamic that he has not had.
yeah,
And I think Zach Collins is actually going to play quite a bit better this year too. He showed some signs last year.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, they have a step. They definitely there's a path for them to do well this year. I just think that too many other Western Conference teams got a lot better, whereas I feel like the Blazers kind of were stuck in neutral during the offseason, even moved backwards. But I'm down for that tapioca take if you wanna lock it in. Yeah, you said
So,
they're making it to the second round of the playoffs.
a little disclaimer here: we do not exchange currency. If you've seen any of our future episodes, which are our previous episodes, we do a segment called Tapioca Takes, where we basically exchange boba. That's our hot take. So you're saying you want to make a tapioca take that Portland does not advance past the first round?
I think they will not make it past the first round.
They will not make it past the first round, and you're
Yes.
giving me 1-1 on that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. They made it to the Western Conference Finals last year.
That I was expecting you to want like 3-1 on that. The 1-1 deal.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Booked.
Booked. Thanks
Yeah,
for the boba.
I think there's a 1-4 seed. I think there's a very clear hierarchy in the West. That 1-4 seed. I think Denver or Portland probably lands within the 5 to 8, and they're gonna have a really tough out in that first round.
I think everyone in the top 8 is gonna have a tough out, to be honest. But
except for the team playing Portland.
Oh wow. Well, maybe they'll get lucky and they'll play Denver again.
We'll see.
So let's move on to the next team. This is the team that Yash has historically liked for their coach, who most of us like the coach as well. The San Antonio Spurs. So what is your take on them this season, Yash, and what did you think of their offseason?
Their offseason was, I think everyone just, getting healthy, having a good, players, DeRozan and Podol are going to be coming into their second years with San Antonio. I think DeRozan learned a lot in his first year, and he's going to come out a better player. I was really impressed with Derek White this last season. He improved a lot, and I feel like he got, when given the opportunity, he really shined. He had a couple of games against San Antonio in the playoffs where he just went off like 30 bombs.
He did.
He's like that they actually have they sort of do their, they never rebuild, they just retool, right? Like they got you got your vets, you've got Aldridge, DeRozan, Patty Mills, and then you've got your younger players. You've got DeJounte Murray, he's going to be coming back this season.
That's a great player potentially as well.
Derek White, Lonnie Walker, he played summer league for some reason and was just killing everyone. So I'm excited to see what he can do his second year. They've made a couple of I think their draft picks were pretty good. Keldon Johnson, I believe, they drafted. I'm not sure. I have to check that.
Is that Detroit Lions wide receiver?
That's no. I have to see what they drafted.
Keldon Johnson.
The thing with the Spurs, which is a testament to Pop, is we're in the 3-point era, and this guy literally has two of the most mid-range happy players of all time, and he somehow has turned that into an efficient offense. It's just insane how they're able to do that. And I think another player that's actually been key for them, which is impressive in this stage of his career, considering his injuries, Rudy Gay was actually kind of very important for that team. And he's one of the few people that has come back from a torn Achilles and really turned it around, and stayed, a good player afterwards.
Yeah, he had one of his best shooting percentage seasons with the Spurs. He was a really solid vet presence, as well as just being a really good, a serviceable wing. So,
yep.
They're my dark horse team, my dark horse team to make it to the finals.
Dark horse. Okay.
Dark horse. Like,
Can I get a tapioca take out of you? Do you think they'll make the second round? Because if they're your dark horse to make the finals, they must make the second round, right?
yeah, I'll give you 2-1.
Why can't you give me 1-1? You think they're your dark horse to make the finals? You can't even
Dark horse
bet
is
1 to
already a
1.
stretch. Dark horse is already a stretch.
You can't bet 1-1 on them to make the second round.
3-2.
3-2. All right, fine. 3-2.
I can't do a boba and a half.
Fine. 3-2.
All right, I'll give you
3-2. I'll give you 3. You give me 2. If they don't
second
make
round.
The second round. Deal. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to add, I think they're good. I think last year, like, the reason why they did so well is because they had all these sharpshooters from the outside that allowed them to kind of build around the two mid-range players they have. But I think this year, I really think DeMar DeRozan, I really think he might get traded this year. I don't think DeMar DeRozan is a Popovich type player. And it's just really hard to build a team both around DeMar and Aldridge, and like if you watch him play, it definitely seems like Pop favors Aldridge running the offense a lot more than DeRozan. And with all the point guards that they've stocked up, like they can easily slide like a point guard to the shooting guard position, and DeRozan kind of becomes expendable. So
I can totally see that. And
yeah, so I
can't imagine which team is going to take him at the moment, but I can totally see that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I think because Pop favors Aldridge so much is just because he's been with the team longer. DeRozan's only been there for 1 year, and they had, I don't think they really had an offseason to sort of, go to camp, really hash out. It took Aldridge a couple of years to really get situated with Popovich, and Popovich had to make some concessions. Not concessions, just to come to a middle ground about how Aldridge should be playing. And I feel like when they had that conversation the season after, he was just going off, and that was when Kawhi had that like his tendon, his quad issue.
His sitting out of spite issue. Yeah.
His load management before it was called load management. So, I think there is a chance that he could be traded if there's like a really good deal on the table. But I think Popovich wants to compete, and I think, like I said, unless there's a really good deal on the table, he won't trade DeMar. DeMar is still a borderline all-star level player. And those are hard to come by.
All right, fair. So the next team that I'm going to talk about is the Golden State Warriors, the former Western Conference champions, who for some reason are being written off as not being able to make the playoffs this year. Are you buying that, Lawrence? Do you think they're going to miss the playoffs?
I am not buying it. I think between Curry and Draymond, that's already a playoff core. Like I think those two, Draymond defensively, Curry offensively, even Draymond offensively, and with the shooters that they surrounded that team with Steph, not Steph, D'Angelo Russell, who signed a huge contract in Golden State. Like I don't know if D'Angelo Russell is a long-term play for them. I think that's still going to be Clay, but D'Angelo's signing with the Warriors, basically, he's holding down the fort for them until Clay recovers, and I think that's a really good signing, at least for now. Well, we won't know until the season actually starts. I think they're gonna have a lot of defensive deficiencies between a backcourt with Curry and D'Lo, but I think they're gonna be able to mask it with offensive firepower and Draymond anchoring that defense.
Yeah, they lost Kevin Durant, which is massive blow. Klay Thompson may not come back this season, or maybe he comes back in the final 2 months or so. But they did add D'Angelo Russell, like you said, and that was a smart move because they gained an asset in return for Durant rather than just losing him for nothing. And like you said, they may just trade D'Angelo later, or if he pans out, maybe they'll keep him.
Yeah, but, and honestly, like Kevon Looney, like given playing time last year, he played very, very well. So I think he can. He's no KD, but he can fill in admirably, I think.
He's yeah. That's not quite the other Kevin, but they also picked up Willie Cauley-Stein. Um, I think Yash had an interesting take about the Warriors this year. Um, a certain player on their team. Do you think he's going to win a certain award this year?
Yeah, I think Steph is he's lined up to take the MVP this year. I think a lot of teams, I think the media in general, they're sleeping on the Warriors. I feel like they were so used to, you know, the last 3 years of Kevin Durant. Instead, that they kind of forgot just how good Curry is, and I think you're gonna see this team run like a they could very well run like a 7 seconds or less offense, like the old school Phoenix Suns, right? They're not going to have that defensive, prowess, but they're just going to be like running these pick and rolls, full court offensive game plans, and just really, I mean, they're going to try to run teams off the court. And I think, players like Kayvon Looney and Willie Cauley-Stein that can, play the pick and roll, get the lobs. Like this is going to be a really fun team to watch, and I'm really excited to see what Steve Kerr is going to do. There's going to be a floor general at all times, on the court for the Warriors, and you're like, when Clay comes back, you're going to see these like really cool like 3 guard sets that they could like all 3 of those players can get really hot, and they can just start draining threes, draining shots, and like they're going to be a really fun team to watch. They may not like win the entire thing, but they're going to be a very exciting team to watch. And I think just they're being slept on.
Yeah, I mean, I know how high you are on D'Lo. That's one of your favorite players in the league.
Yeah.
They are a completely different team though. From an optics standpoint, we're not going to see KD anymore. We won't see Clay till the end of the season. Andre Iguodala is no longer there. Sean Livingston, I believe, was waived. So it's a new makeup in that new arena. So it should be interesting to see. But let's move on to the next team. This team is getting a little bit of hype. They made a big trade this offseason, and they also drafted the #1 overall pick, Zion Williamson. So what do you guys think about the Pelicans this upcoming season, and how do you think they fared in that trade that they made with my Lakers?
I mean, Pelicans are all you, Yash.
All right, I'll take it. That was just a great trade. That was such a great trade. Like, basically, you traded away 1 year of AD for, 2, previously second overall draft picks in Lonzo and Bi, and then you got like 3 first-round draft picks, with pick swaps. With pick swaps. One of those was the Cam Reddish pick, the #4 pick that they got. But
that wasn't Cam Reddish.
The #4?
Well, the #4 pick was actually DeAndre Hunter.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
They flipped that pick to Atlanta to get a couple picks.
Yeah,
so they turned that into their center. I forget his name though.
They got Jackson Hayes. That was a
Jackson
center.
Hayes.
And Nickeil Alexander Walker.
Hayes had the best poster dunk of summer league.
Yeah,
but not the best overall dunk. That still goes to Miles Bridges with the Euro windmill. That was filthy.
Yeah. So the Pelicans, like they, I think one of you said it. It was either Lawrence or you, Dhruv, that said they had the quickest rebuild of all time. I mean, all of a sudden they got bench depth. They've got a solid starting 5. You still have Drew Holiday, who is, in my opinion, like probably the best. I guess not the best. He's the best defensive point guard in the league right now, and just a great offensive player. You got Derek Favors from Utah, who's going to be starting out. He could either play the 4 or 5. You got Jackson Hayes. You got, you signed JJ Redick. You still have.
That was my favorite move they made, by the way, getting JJ Redick. I think that move alone is going to give them an opportunity to be in playoff contention, because that guy's, the gravity that he has by running off those screens and the attention that he draws is going to free up space for Zion.
Man, You just mentioned who's starting at the 5 for the Pelicans. I think I just like flashed into my head. Isn't Jahlil Okafor now their starting center?
No, it's Derek Favors.
He was the starting center last season when AD they shut down AD or load managed him. But Yeah, it's Favors, Zion, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo, and Drew. That
I think
backcourt.
JJ Redick will start over Lonzo.
Yeah, I think it'll go. It can go either way.
They need somebody to shoot the ball.
That's true. But whenever Lonzo and Drew play together, that's a very nasty defensive backcourt. And that team, like, they may lack shooting, but that's a full court team with Alvin Gentry, who's a child of the 7 seconds or less offense, and they're going to be a very exciting team. They're going to run teams off the court, and I feel like they're going to sneak into the playoffs. That's
Is that a Tapioca take?
That's a Tapioca take.
What do you want on that?
Let's see.
I mean, it's not like that spicy. It's
not
a little
that spicy,
but it's not like.
I think
like
1-1 is fair for that. I mean,
What do you think?
I think 1-1's fair on that. Like, I'm not that high on the Pelicans.
I think 1-1 would be unfair to him, so I'm willing to give him a little bit more.
Give me 2-1.
2-1?
Yeah.
2-1 that the Pelicans are in.
Yeah.
I get 1 if they're out.
Yeah.
Okay. Deal. So I'm just stacking up on Boba today. This is going to be amazing. I cannot wait.
Stacking up on Boba. That's what you're doing.
I can't believe you guys are just gifting me Boba. Like, this is Boba charity right now. I really appreciate this. But yeah, Pelicans, they definitely will have a league pass worthy team. It'll be
They're going to be a fun team to watch. They're not going to be good, but they're going to be a fun team to watch. Like, you just don't just gain basketball skill overnight. Like, Ingram and Lonzo are still going to have the deficiencies that they had when they were Lakers. Like, Josh Hart is still, going to show up inconsistently like he did with the Lakers. I think they lost a lot of great players in Randall and AD, who's kind of good, and Christian Wood, who's a beast. I don't know why they cut him, but they're still
surprising.
Yeah, they're okay. They're gonna be decent. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs.
I would probably take them in the playoffs in the East, but not in the West. But they, like I said, they'll be a fun league pass team. It'll be interesting to see if Lonzo, Hart, and Ingram, look better in a different system with a different fit, and maybe make the Lakers look dumb. Or maybe they'll come out like geniuses because they did pick up Anthony Davis, who you said is not a bad player to add. So what do you take? What's your take on our hometown Lakers, Mr. Lawrence? Are we coming back to the glory days? Are we about to win a chip this year? What's going on?
So I as big of a Lakers fan as I am, I'm going to pump the brakes on the Lakers a little this year. I think that they're very overvalued. I think they're tied with the Clippers as the favorites to win the NBA championship. Like, I think you're going way too fast here. Like, first of all, DeMarcus Cousins injury, man, what a tragedy. That guy's had the worst run of luck in the last 2 years with injuries. But now we're trying to find a way to replace him. It's not going to be easy to replace someone like DeMarcus Cousins. And like, it's even more so when we're looking at guys like Dwight Howard or Hasheem Thabeet to try and replace DeMarcus Cousins.
Was that a Hasheem Thabeet name drop? Oh my goodness. I have not heard that name in 7 years.
Looks pretty dire. Like, we can't run JaVale McGee out there for 30 minutes a game. So who knows? Like, I think the Lakers still lack depth. I think outside of LeBron and AD, if one of them gets injured, we're not sitting pretty. Like last year, and the thing with LeBron too is he's getting up there in age. Like, he's not a spring chicken anymore. He takes a lot of load management days off, and AD is made out of glass. So who knows? Like, I think what they did when they missed out on Kawhi, who, by the way, like, I can't believe so many people thought that Kawhi was gonna go to the Lakers and potentially team up with LeBron and be the number 3 option on the Lakers. Like, I don't know why people thought that, especially after he just led the Raptors to a championship by himself.
I was one of those foolish people that slightly believed that was going to happen, but
I mean,
I knew it wasn't.
Be careful about the media, man. Yeah, for real. But I think Pelinka did such a great job pivoting after finding out that Kawhi wasn't signing with them. Last minute, he signed all these different players. Like, well, who was it? They signed Danny Green. They signed
Avery Bradley.
Quinn Cook, Avery Bradley. Like, they just filled out the roster as well as they could with such cheap contracts as well. And who knows, like, maybe those guys will step up. Like, those guys are definitely buy low kind of guys, because they, except for Danny Green, I thought he got an enormous contract for a player of his caliber. Like, I'm not that high on Danny Green. I know you guys are, but I just don't think he brings much to the table besides shooting threes and playing defense.
And I think that is exactly what you want to surround any team with. LeBron James and Anthony Davis is guys that could shoot threes and play defense. So I think Danny Green, yeah, I mean, you look at it from a player aspect, yeah, he's not like an all-star, but he's an all-star fit.
They got benched for Fred VanVleet in the NBA Finals.
He was one of the best catch and shoot players in the NBA. You look at percentage on like wide open threes, and that's going to be the majority of the offense that he gets. And I think we can all agree that he's a very solid defender. Yeah, we all were kind of laughing at what he did Game 6 at the end when he panicked, but the guy is a perfect fit with LeBron and AD. So I'm a huge fan of that. I'm kind of in agreement with you. I want to be biased and say that we're going to three-peat, but can't do that. I don't think we're going to win this year. I say
we're gonna three-peat?
Huh?
You just said we're gonna three-peat?
No, I'm not. I'm joking. I keep saying we like I'm on the team, but I don't think the Lakers are gonna win a championship this year. I actually don't even think they're gonna make the finals.
I thought you were gonna say make the playoffs.
No way. They're definitely making the playoffs. I can't see any way that happens. But
we're gonna get to that, Drew. We're gonna get to that.
Whoa! You think they're gonna miss the playoffs?
What did you just say?
Yeah, there's a very good chance they miss the playoffs.
No,
and this was a take that I had even before the Cousins injury, even before all this. Like, this is a take. They are overvalued, and it's not that they made like they're not a good team. They're a good team. It's just the West is completely stacked. The West is it's not a super team. Like, this isn't a super team league anymore. There's so many dynamic duos now in the league, and a lot of them are on the Western Coast. Like, the people think that like the Suns and the Pelicans and the Kings, like those are going to be like surefire wins. They're going to be they're going to trouble the Lakers. They're going to trouble other teams in the league. They're going to win games. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to win games. And like there's a lot of, I mean, tell me, like, would you take the Lakers over like, the Clippers, Rockets, Warriors, Jazz, Spurs, Nuggets, Trailblazers? Like, do you think any one of those teams would miss the playoffs than the Lakers?
So you didn't name 8 teams, so they're still in that mix.
No,
but wait, can you please just repeat for the? Did you really just say the Lakers? Can you look into the camera again and tell me the Lakers are not making the playoffs?
The Lakers, there's a good chance they don't make the playoffs.
Oh, okay. So you're backtracking.
No, that's what I said in the beginning.
When was the last time a team led by LeBron, when he was healthy, missed the playoffs?
I mean, last year he was healthy for the most part.
What?
He wasn't, though.
What are you talking about? And you just added Anthony. Okay. So
fine. You added.
Do you want to donate to me on that take?
But man, like,
I'll give you 5-1. I'll give you 5-1.
Shit, we'll do for 4-1.
For 4-1? You want in on this action, Lawrence? This is free. This is free boba.
I mean, I've already got an off-camera Vervana bet with him, so.
Hold up, this is parlay then. If we both of you get it on the same time.
Parlay?
Yeah.
Oh, so 16-1.
Yeah, multiply it too, right?
Okay, there's no way that the Lakers are missing the playoffs unless there's a massive injury. That's the only way. But again, so I'm gonna recap what they did. They lost Cousins to injury, which sucks. I think Kyle Kuzma has been putting in work in the offseason. I like that he's playing with Team USA, and I think that he's going to come and do a good job to start the season. Avery Bradley, yeah, he's kind of been, he hasn't been the same since he was Celtics Avery Bradley, but if he can regain that form, that'll end up being a really good pickup. Troy Daniels, literally the only thing this guy does is shoot. So I think, like Lawrence said, Pelinka did a good job of pivoting and getting guys that fit around these guys. I think Jared Dudley, even though he's like a walking meme, he is still a solid veteran. Like he can hit corner threes and be a veteran presence in that locker room. KCP has some dirt on Pelinka or Genie Bus or someone, because this guy keeps getting paid an exorbitant amount of money, but he still is kind of a nice fit on the team. So I'm not mad at that. And we went this whole time without mentioning the GOAT, Alex Caruso, who is a legitimate basketball player and is going to give this team quality minutes and is actually going to be a part of their success this year. And I think lastly, JaVale McGee is going to have to step up now that Boogie's gone. I agree that the Lakers will not win a championship or even make the finals, but there is zero chance that they miss the playoff. Let's move on to our last bottom feeder team of the day, who is a new bottom feeder.
Did you just segue the Lakers into a bottom feeder team?
I did.
Did you just prove Yosh's point right there?
I was just trying to make him feel better about the donation he gave me. But so the last bottom feeder of the day, which is a newly converted bottom feeder but was very, very active, is OKC. And before I pass this one on, I'm going to just give a quick little tidbit. Again, talking about what I really like, which is teams that have no chance of contending, being an absorber of assets. So OKC traded Russell Westbrook, got Chris Paul back, turned that into a couple pick swaps and 2 first-round picks. They unloaded Jeremy Grant, turned that into a first-round pick. They traded Paul George and got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is he's a legitimate player who has a lot of upside. So I think that's a really good pickup for them. And in the process, they got 4 first-round picks and multiple pick swaps. So this team is like filled with assets. They also still have some veterans that they may trade, like Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder. They may reflip Chris Paul if there's a team out there willing to buy. They have an insane amount of assets. They can play this there's so many ways they can play this. They can just keep collecting assets, or they can eventually turn that into like a monster trade offer and get a star with all the assets that they've collected. So I actually really like what OKC did. Knowing that they were not going to be able to keep Paul George, finding the opportunity to move him, Westbrook, and Grant and turn that into a plethora of picks. Do you agree with that, Lawrence? And do you have any quick thoughts on OKC?
Yeah, I think Sam Presti is a top 5 GM in the league. That guy is such a genius. Like, from what he did with the Sonics to OKC, like, man, this guy makes all the right moves.
All the right moves.
He made one bad move, literally just one bad move.
But it may have been ownership driven. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that like what he did with this rebuild, I think he did a great job. In 4 years, like OKC is going to be a top team once they start cashing in on all these draft picks. But this year, there's really nothing. I don't have anything to say about them this year.
I think Chris Paul is actually going to surprise some people. I think he's going to do well in the beginning of the season. And I think ultimately that'll lead to him getting flipped somewhere, like maybe Minnesota or some team that has like a large salary that they can trade back. But yeah. I look out for Chris Paul returning to OKC, because if you remember when Hurricane Katrina happened, the Hornets actually, the now Pelicans, which were the Hornets at that time, actually played in OKC for a little while. So he's getting reunited with that fan base.
Yeah, I mean, I legitimately think OKC actually might finish last place in the league this year, or in the Western Conference. I think that's
the possibility.
I just don't think they're very good, but they have young players who, like Hamidou Diallo last year played very well when he was given playing time, and they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander when he was playing well. Mm-hmm. I think the veteran guys that you named, like Chris Paul, Steven Adams, maybe Gallinari, all might get traded this year, just because they want to continue with the rebuild, and who knows what they can get back, maybe more picks, more assets, and then Nerlens Noel, like they've taken a chance on him as well. He's on there, right? Yeah.
I think they re-signed him.
Yeah. So who knows? Like I think their future looks bright. Their outlook for this year, maybe not so much though.
Fair. So they had two prominent trade partners. Let's go ahead and start with the first one, which is the Houston Rockets. They got Russell Westbrook in exchange for Chris Paul, and Harden and Westbrook have been friends since they were like in middle school, and they have some chemistry from their OKC days. So, what's your take on their season, Lawrence? Do you think they're gonna make
I
it to
I
the Western Conference Finals?
I think they're like it's really hard to say, right? Like I think they're gonna be good. Like it's you add Westbrook to that team and you take out Chris Paul and you think your team would immediately improve, but it's just like I how is there enough ball to go around with those two guys there? Like both I think those two had the highest usage rates in the league last year. And yeah, like I don't know. I think they're gonna be good, but I just don't know how that roster is gonna work out between Westbrook and Harden. Like what's gonna happen? Like Westbrook dribbles it up the court one possession and goes 1-on-5 ISO. The next possession Harden dribbles it up and just goes 1-on-5 step back three. Like I don't know what do you think's gonna happen there?
Well, they can stagger those minutes, and
You can only stagger so many minutes though.
I agree, but they'll basically have 48 minutes of Westbrook and Harden on the court. They're not going to have a minute without either of them out there. Um, I think it'll be good to see Russell Westbrook with people around him that can actually shoot the ball because last few years in OKC, really the only person that's been doing that consistently is Paul George. He's been surrounded by several non-shooters. So I'm interested to see how that dynamic is going to work. I think their small ball lineups. I think their small ball lineups actually become even more dangerous now because Russell Westbrook getting switched onto you versus Chris Paul getting switched onto you is a difference because Russell Westbrook can get in there and bang and rebound with big guys. If he gets switched on to someone, he's not gonna have a problem like boxing out, a 6'8", 6'9" guy. They can use that switching style that they have when PJ Tucker is, playing center in those small ball lineups, and I think that's going to be a really dangerous lineup to end games. I agree with what you're saying about like, okay, there's only one ball to go around, but I think they're just going to play in the flow of the offense and see who has a hot hand that night and just ride that. And I think they will actually make the Western Conference Finals. I don't have them making the NBA Finals, but I see this team being pretty successful this year.
So in our previous edition of this episode, I made a statement that Russell Westbrook is going to lead the league in assists, and you guys jumped on me like crazy, like you guys didn't think that. I maintain my statement that Russell Westbrook is going to lead the league in assists. I think his numbers, like I think I asked you guys what you guys' his numbers were going to be this year, and whether it was going to go down, like his scoring is going to go down, his assists going to go down, like what was going to happen with his numbers playing next to Harden. And I believe that his assists are going to go up, his scoring is going to go way down. Like he was never like I don't think Westbrook was ever like a elite scorer. Like he scored because of volume. Like the reason he had so many points per game was because of volume. Like
he led the league once, I believe, right? But that insane year.
I think it was still because of volume. Like this guy can't make elbow jumpers for the life of him. Bricks so many 3-pointers. Only time he ever like can score consistently is by driving it to the rim. And then last year he had like one of the worst years free throw shooting that he's ever had. I don't even know what happened this year.
Surprising because he used to be like in the 80 percentile. And speaking of that elbow, pull up jumper, that used to be something I thought he was good at. I don't know where that's gone. Like he's having like a weird dynamic happen where like some of his shots are kind of just disappearing. And he was terrible from three last year.
Yeah.
So hopefully he works on that, but I still think that James Harden in the regular season is going to be good enough to get you to a high win total. And I think those two, along with the role players that they have, which are, really good fits around them. Eric Gordon is a fantastic fit around them. And who knows, maybe they turn Clint Capella into a big man that can maybe they flip him into like a Kevin Love, or maybe they flip him into a big man that can shoot and give them another dynamic. I'm interested to see what happens there. I still think this team is talented enough to make the conference finals at least.
I think they'll make it to the playoffs. I don't know if they're ever gonna fully click this year. Like the Westbrook Paul George combo never really clicked while they were in OKC. It just seemed like they were so close to getting something there. It just never really transpired. And I feel like the same thing's going to happen in Houston, where it's going to feel like they're so close to meshing. It's just never going to happen.
My counter argument to the OKC thing, though, is that aside from PG, like nobody really was like relied on to shoot there. You know, like they've got shooters in Houston. Eric Gordon knocked down, PJ Tucker from the corner knocked down. Austin Rivers even was for a period of time was knocked down last year. They always figure out how to get people to, you know, turn whatever offense they had prior to coming there into something efficient. So maybe
Yeah, I mean,
they did that with Westbrook.
it's pretty easy to knock down and shoot threes when you're wide open every single time.
Hey, tell that to Andre Roberson, who he didn't play last year, but that guy, you know, classic Russell Westbrook teammate, open in the corner, air ball. You know, that's now going to be Eric Gordon or PJ Tucker, who are, you know, splash zone. So the last team left to talk about, who is the team that I think will make it to the NBA Finals, not win, but make it to the NBA Finals, is the LA Clippers. They had the, you know, by all intents and purposes, the biggest splash of the offseason. They got Kawhi Leonard. They made the large trade for Paul George. They retained Patrick Beverley. They retained, you know, most of their core. I think they're going to make the NBA Finals. What's your thought on that, Lawrence?
I think they're the most stacked team in the Western Conference. Like I don't think there's any way around that. That team is so good. Like 1 through 4.5, if you want to count Zubac as their starting center.
Yeah.
Even technically their 6 is better than their 5th man, right? You're returning Lou Will. Yeah, like that. They're the co-favorites to win the ship, and I think they're very much justified. Like they still bring back Lou Will. They bring in another like sharpshooter and Landry Shamet in that trade
For Toby.
For Tobias Harris. Yeah, Mo Harkless is now with them. Solid defender, solid role player. They re-signed JaMychal Green, I believe.
Yes.
And you know he played very well.
They just signed Patrick Patterson, which is like, he may not play, but that's not a bad, like if that's your 12th guy.
Yeah, I mean they also signed who was it? Rodney McGruder, right, from the Heat.
Yeah,
A solid defender. Like this team's gonna grind you down. Like I would not want to be defended by anybody on that team except for maybe Zubac. But
that is
like
the most intimidating team to play against if you're an elite guard, elite backcourt player, because you get hounded for 94 feet by Patrick Beverley. He goes to the bench, then you get hounded by Paul George. He goes to the bench, and you get hounded by Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard goes back to the bench, and one of those other guys comes back in. It's going to be insane to go up against them if you're a backcourt player.
And then as soon as you get a break defensively, then you get Lou Williams switched onto you on offense, and have fun chasing that guy around.
Yeah, and he's a legitimate. He may be the closer on that team. I feel like that's going to be their closing lineup. They're going to have Beverly, Lou Will, PG, Kawhi, and Montrezl Harrell, who played extremely well in that series against Golden State with Lou Will. That pick and roll was dynamic. And like you said, Landry Shamet is a great fit with them. He's a up-and-coming young player, solid three-point shooting. Mo Harkless, that was, you know, a solid defensive pickup. And yeah, I don't know what the limit is for this team. They could blow teams away. I have no clue. It really just comes down to health. I do think they're going to make the NBA Finals. I don't have them winning. If you've seen our Eastern Conference episode, I mentioned which team I think is going to win. But I do think, even though I'm a diehard Laker fan, I'm going to keep it real. I think the Clippers are going to make it. So,
I think the Clippers are in a much better spot than the Lakers are this year as well. I mean, that's what happens when you get the best basketball player on the planet, right?
It's hard to say he isn't at this point. Yeah, he's after that playoff that we just witnessed. So I think we've covered all the teams. Maybe we can round table and talk about briefly maybe some closing statements, and also talk about which team you think will win or make it to the NBA Finals from the West. Yash, are you there?
6 hours later.
And we are back. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. So we are going to end with some closing statements here, and we're also going to discuss our pick to win the West as we end this episode. So Yash, what are your thoughts on who makes the finals for the West, and what are your closing statements for the conference as a whole?
So for the West, I have Houston coming out. In the Eastern Conference episode, it was I had Philly, so Houston, Philly. I don't think they win, but they'll make the finals. They were the only team that actually challenged the Warriors the last 2-3 years. They were basically, they were up 3-2, and they had that historically bad run of missed 3-pointers in Game 7, 0 for 27. But you got to remember, like, this was the only team that actually put up a fight against the Warriors, and if I think they're going to come out and they're extra motivated. I think there's a small window of opportunity here. In terms of the Western Conference, it's just going to be a bloodbath. You're going to once again see a lot of these scenarios where a team could be the 9th seed, but they're only 3 games back from like the 3rd seed or 4th seed. It's going to be a bloodbath, and you may have 43, 44 wins, but you may not make the playoffs. I
don't think 44 wins is making the playoffs in the West this year.
Yeah, I think you need at least 47 or 48. It's just going to be super tight between the 1 through 8 seeds, even the 9th and 10th seed. So it's going to be a very exciting year. I'm really excited. The Lakers, they're going to have a microscope on them. The whole news with Space Jam 2 and all that, like, it could serve as a distraction. The media can be extremely toxic at times, and we'll now see Anthony Davis. He's arguably a top 5 player in the league, and he's one of the few players that can win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. And he was basically in a small market. We'll now see him in one of the biggest markets in the league, and we'll see how he reacts to that. So I think that's going to be fun. It'll be exciting to see which way AD progresses. And now he's at a team of his choice, so he may take it to the next level.
Very cool. How about you, Lawrence? What are your closing thoughts on the West, and who is your pick to represent the West in the finals?
Yeah, I think the West should be fun to watch this year. It's going to be a bloodbath, like Yash said. My pick to represent the West is a little outside of the box pick, and I'm going to stick with my beloved Denver Nuggets. I think that they're like the only team in the West that's returning certainty. I think every other team is they're starting something brand new. All the contenders, it's all new, a lot of new players, new systems, everything. Whereas Denver brings back the same core, the same coach, the same philosophy, and all their players are a year older and a year better. Like, none of them are, besides Millsap, I think he's the only one over like 27 or something on that team. They're still young, a year of experience in the playoffs under their belt, and they bounced back 2 years ago when they missed the playoffs to become the number 1 seed. I think they're going to bounce back again this year with a vengeance and represent the West in the finals. Getting by the Clippers is going to be a tall task, but I really think that they have the firepower to do it.
Fair. So my closing thoughts with the West is I'm really excited to see the dynamic duos that are now the new theme. We went from basically the last 4 years penciling in the Warriors making the finals to now it's like we're actually having this discussion and we really can't definitively say who's going to make it. So that alone is worth the excitement for me. And I'm, like you said, there's a lot of new fits and a lot of new teams, and it's going to be interesting to see how they get acclimated throughout the season. So I think the NBA is going to be a really entertaining product overall this year. My couple closing thoughts, I think that some teams are going under the radar that still shouldn't be, like Utah and Portland. I don't see how these teams continuously fly under the radar when they're legitimate. Utah has the defensive player of the year. They returned most of their core and they upgraded with Mike Conley. I think they are in a good spot to be a legitimate contender this year. And then Portland, who I'm a big Damian Lillard fan, and I think they return that dynamic duo. They made the Western Conference Finals last year, and I think they're going to compete again and keep proving those haters wrong, or those people that just overlook them. And lastly, I like the salary absorber teams that turn those into assets, like Memphis and OKC. I think that's a trend that needs to continue for bottom feeder teams. I'm surprised that the Knicks don't do that. When you know you're not going to compete, you know you're in a market where you're not going to get a marquee free agent, understand the position that you're in and just absorb first round picks, and you can turn those into something else, or you can draft well like OKC has and compete later down the road. Why waste a bunch of salary on players like Harrison Barnes or players like Taj Gibson that the Knicks did? Absorb some contracts and turn those into assets.
I mean, compared to what they did last year, they did a pretty good job this year.
Which team?
When the Knicks, Joakim Noah was the highest paid player on their team, followed by Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah, they've historically not given the greatest contracts. And then lastly, I know you criticized me for taking like super obvious picks, but I just can't see how the Clippers don't make the finals this year. They've got the formula for winning, which I've always believed is having an elite guard / forward who's 6'6", 6'7", that can score on all three levels and defend. They have two of those guys. I think that is alone a dynamic for making it to the finals.
This could just be your brand. Your brand is just going to be like the most obvious favorites to
Captain
to
Obvious.
move on. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I'm completely fine with that. I had a lot of fun redoing this with you guys. Hopefully the audio comes out nice this time.
Yeah.
And so this has been the first official episode of the Boardmen Don't Get Paid podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care.